I haven't heard anything about them being more aggressive in the wake of the Julius injury. It's kind of been similar, like keeping an eye on everything. Have you heard anything on them taking a more aggressive stance post Randle injury?
I mean, right before, literally like a day before Randall got hurt, I had heard they would likely stand pat at this point, just given the way that
Yes.
OG Anunoby has affected them. I think they were, even though he missed 2 games since they traded for him, I think they're 14-2 with him in the fold. Um,
Mm-hmm.
Pretty high rate. I don't know if that's going to be sustainable, but it's worked out well for them. As far as what they do with some of those names you mentioned, I do think if they are going to make a move, maybe they pivot away from a guard and do something short term for a front court guy. But I don't sense urgency at this point yet. If that changes, however, I would say that that's an indictment of like what Randall's injury status is really going to be behind the scenes. We know the Knicks took a little bit of time to release that update. If you have good news immediately, it's going out. That's usually the way I read into those things. If you're taking a little bit of time, there's some uncertainty there. Maybe you want more clarification. Doesn't mean gloom and doom, but it also doesn't mean that there's certainty there as for when he comes back. And the other thing, Ian, I think we have to temper expectations a little bit because the second he gets back on the court, you can't expect him to be, 22 and 10 and, 5 assists right off the bat. We saw in the beginning of the year when he was coming back, he was a little rusty. He needed some time to adjust. And then he became the all-star caliber Julius Randle that we've seen with the Knicks. So I don't think ultimately it moves the needle, big picture. For a guy like DeJounte Murray, they always thought the price was a little bit too high right now. If Atlanta comes down in the week leading up to the trade deadline, then maybe there could be a conversation there. But it hasn't seemed like that to this point. They don't have to move DeJounte at this point because they're not in luxury tax danger yet. It's more about next season, as I touched on HoopsHype earlier today. But could a guy like Kelly Olynyk make sense for them? Maybe. Or another backup big that you can have that's either a pick and pop guy or can play both the 4 and the 5. It's possible, but we'll see what materializes coming up. Still, teams right now are holding out for what they really want. But as we get closer and closer to the deadline, those asking prices come down if a team is really motivated to move a player off their roster.
Yeah, absolutely. And you talked about standing pat, Mike. I had heard the same thing. We mentioned it last week, just the thinking among some people with the Knicks that, hey, this is going well. We're winning. This group has found a good rhythm. And would that rhythm be disrupted by adding a player? And also, it's a difficult needle that the Knicks are trying to thread here by including Quentin Grimes and Evan Fournier in a deal because that would be their way to get the most value back. If you're trading Quentin Grimes on his own, it's a difficult way to get value back because of his contract on a rookie deal. And you're not going to get anybody that's on a rookie salary that you would want in a trade for Grimes. So you have to add his salary to Evan Fournier. And if you do a deal for Fournier on his own, you're losing a potential salary that you could use in the offseason for a trade. So tricky balance here with the Knicks. And I think so all those things had factored in to the thinking that, hey, maybe we do stand pat here because things are going well. Randle injury, I think, changes that. I haven't, again, heard if they're more aggressive on guys. But I would think, at this point, everybody kind of knows where people stand. And I think, you go into the weekend and maybe things start to pick up then or early next week. And Michael, like you said, you see if those prices start to move on a Jordan Clarkson, and the Clarkson price I would expect would continue to be high because Utah really likes him. They don't have to trade him. Same thing with DeJounte Murray, Atlanta. I can't see them coming down much because they don't have to move him. He's under contract for several years now. So you see where things are, as you get to February 8th and you move from there. But the standing pat idea is definitely there. And I wonder if it continues depending on how they think Julius Randle can rehab this and how quickly he'll be back.